In this hand, I have millions of dollars for you and your friends. In this hand, I have a gun, in case you decide not to. Money, power, and sex.
Now I'm traveling first class around the world, making a good salary, meeting with presidents.
I was an economic hitman.
Say, who's that guy?
2022년 초 스리랑카의 부도로 대통령과 일가족이 본국을 버리고 떠났고 남아있는 국민들은 전기와 기름 등 기본 생활에 필요한 것들을 공급받지 못했습니다. 그런데 한 국가가 망하게 되는 배후에는 무시무시한 인물이 있다는 것 아십니까? 이들 중 자신이 한 일이 세상을 망치는 이름을 깨달아 고해성사를 한 분을 직접 인터뷰했습니다. Confessions of Economic Hitman의 저자는 일을 그만둘 때 입막음을 목적으로 돈을 받았습니다. 하지만 자신이 한 일이 세상에 어떤 역할을 했는지를 깨닫고 그대로는 생을 마감할 수 없어 모든 장치를 마련한 뒤 자신이 한 악행을 세상에 밝힌 겁니다. Are you gonna be okay?
I write about this in the book, how my life was threatened when I first started doing this. I started by writing an expose that I contacted other economic hitmen and jackals to get their stories, and my life was threatened, and that of my daughter, who was an infant at the time, and essentially, and I write the details. I took a bribe not to write the book. It was a consultant's retainer for $500,000, but essentially it was a bribe to take this retainer. And I had very good credentials. I had been chief economist at a major corporation. Yeah, so I get the same thing. The carrot. $500,000 plus an ongoing consultant's fee, or the gun. I took the carrot, and I didn't write the book for many years. I put the money. I didn't go out and buy a big mansion or yachts or any of those things. I put the money into going back to the Amazon rainforest, where I'd been a Peace Corps volunteer and trying to help save the forest, working to help save the forest. I founded nonprofits, Dream Change, the Pachamama Alliance. I was a co-founder. And I wrote 5 books on indigenous people and shamanism and about the death economy. And then on 9/11, I was in the Amazon. When I came home, I went to ground zero. And as I stood there looking down into that pit, I knew I had to come clean. I knew I had to confess. And about the time that I took this vacation in the Caribbean and came to the conclusion that I would stop, I had done that. I'd gotten out of the business, and I went back and I remembered that experience in the Caribbean, thought about it, and this time I realized that rather than writing an expose and including the stories of other people, I wouldn't contact anyone. I would write the book completely in secret. I would write it as a confession, a personal story. I wouldn't contact anyone else. And I figured then it would be my insurance policy, because once I had the book completely written and in the hands of a very good New York literary agent, I figured it was my insurance policy that the alphabet agencies, which is what we refer to the FBI, CIA, NSA, those agencies, they would know that killing me would create problems. It would sell many books. I'd become a martyr. And so I figured once I got it in the hands of an agent and out into the world of the publishing world, that was sort of an insurance policy.
자본주의 체제에서 돈은 옵션이 아니라 필수입니다. 일하기 싫어도 출근해야 하는 이유가 돈 때문인 경우가 더 많은데요. 돈에서 자유로운 삶을 말할 때 돈이 없는 상태보다 돈이 아주 많은 상태를 선호하는 분들이 더 많을 겁니다. 그렇다면 사람을 죽이고도 돈만 있으면 감옥에서 나오는 사람도 있을까요? 전 그리스 재무장관 야니스는 이런 부분 때문에 자본주의가 민주주의를 함락시킬 것이라고 지적하기도 했습니다.
Singapore's Lee Kuan Yew and his great imitators in Beijing have demonstrated beyond reasonable doubt it is perfectly possible to have a flourishing capitalism, spectacular growth, while politics remains democracy-free. Indeed, democracy is receding in our neck of the woods here in Europe.
저자는 세상을 망치면서 돈을 버는 것은 사망경제라고 말합니다. 얼마 전 서울의 한 학원가에서 중고등학생에게 마약을 건네준 사건이 바로 사망경제의 한 예라고 말할 수 있을 겁니다. We also need some kind of ambition or setting up a goal because we're living under this capitalism, so everybody needs money, so they gotta make money. So in what extent can somebody pursue like better life or better self or some kind of wealth? How would you advise to younger generations?
It's essential that we transform this death economy into a life economy. And the life economy pays people to clean up pollution, to mine the plastics that's out there in the oceans and recycle it, to rejuvenate destroyed environments, to regenerate coral reefs that have been destroyed or rainforests or whatever, to recycle, to create technologies and products that enhance life, that don't ravage the earth. So, you may hear some people who are concerned with what's going on in the world saying we got to stop growth. Well, I don't believe that at all. We've got to stop the kind of growth that we've been holding up as the ideal, which is destructive growth. It's part of the death economy for the most part. But we need to grow things that will clean up pollution and regenerate destroyed environments. That will recycle. Solar, wind, non-fossil fuel transportation, on and on and on. Things we haven't even imagined yet. And I think people around the world are waking up to that. So yes, you can make money, you can grow in these areas, but let's grow in areas that make for a better future. So while the death economy is based on short-term profits, short-term maximization of materialistic consumption, the life economy is based on long-term maximization of benefits for life, for human life and other life. And it's essential to business to make profits, even in the short term, but we don't have to make huge profits. Today, these investors and corporations expect to make huge profits, ridiculously large profits. And that's something we've got to change. But this is not about, living in caves. This is about creating a new economic system, and it's really a social, governmental economic system that what we call a life economy.
Would you agree that the wealth might blind people's morality?
Yeah, and the pursuit of wealth also. When we decide that measurement of success is wealth, profits, wealth, whatever, that's extremely dangerous. That should not be the measurement of success for anybody. It becomes a disease. Very, very wealthy people, I know people who will have a 200-foot yacht, but then they're sitting in the marina and a yacht that's 250 feet comes in and they say, who's that guy? And I've got to I guess I got to beat him out, and as I said, there's this competition for who's the wealthiest person in the world or the wealthiest person in America. And there's this sickness. Like, who needs a 200-foot yacht? And certainly once you've got one, who needs a bigger one? Because all it is a big headache, actually. You got to worry a lot about that yacht and those mansions and everything else. I got to say, I don't know very many wealthy people that really enjoy their wealth. They may enjoy certain aspects of it. They may enjoy the power, but wealth does not make you happy. But we think it does. I mean, that's the story. That's the story that's told in the United States, and I think that's the story that's not told around most of the world.
When was the point where you realized what you did was not right, and why did you become the one who confesses about what you did?
After about 7 years doing this, I was spending quite a lot of time in Panama, and I got to be friendly with the head of state of Panama, Omar Torrijos. And he took me aside several times and explained to me what I was really doing. He said, John, I know you think you're doing the right thing, but you got to really look at this. You're not helping the majority of people in these countries. You're selling yourself and other people a lie.
If CIA killed my friend Jaime, I'll probably be next. In less than 3 months, he died when his private plane crashed under very similar circumstances. A Marine Corps general who was in Panama at the time, and he agrees with me that these were probably, at least Torrijos was probably assassination.
And he held out an example which was slightly different then, but in today's terms, what I could say now is in the United States, there's three individuals who have as much wealth as half the U.S. population. If those three individuals last year made 10% on their money, on their wealth, and half the country lost 3%, and the rest of the country remained the same, we would show an overall growth of about 4%, almost 4%. it would look as though everybody gained. But the fact of the matter is only three individuals and their families gained, and the rest of the country either lost or remained the same. And, you know, if that's true in the United States with 3 individuals, in some of the countries where I was working, you had 1 family or 2 families that owned as much wealth as 90% of the population. And so you know, I began to see that these statistics, GDP and other statistics, were totally skewed in favor of the wealthy. They were helping to create this death economy.
So can you name those 3 people? Who are they?
Well, Warren Buffett is one of those 3.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
And Elon Musk. I mean, it changes periodically, but you've got, you know, at the top, you've got, but there's 3 that are at the top. And if you took 10 at the top where you included, you know, Zuckerman and you can name them, you know, you can Google them and find out. And every year there may be a little bit of adjustment in there, but it's always those 3. If you took the 10 wealthiest, you would have even a much more skewed sense of what I'm talking about. So I learned from Omar Torrijos of Panama that what I was doing was selling a lie to myself and to others, that I was convincing myself, because in business school I'd been taught, invest a lot of money in infrastructure and the economy grows. And statistically we can show that it does, but GDP, it's a bad statistic. It's not, you know, it doesn't show prosperity. And after that, this is about 7 years into this job, and it was really hard for me to get out. First of all, there was a lot of pressure on me to stay in from the people who employed me, from, you know, my bosses. But also, I'd grown up the son of a teacher in a boys' prep school in New Hampshire. You know, my dad didn't make much money. The school gave us a house and food. We didn't suffer. But I was surrounded by very, very wealthy boys. And I grew up with this kind of inferiority complex and a desire to travel first class around the world. And now I'm traveling first class around the world, making a good salary, meeting with presidents. You know? So I didn't really want to believe what I knew to be the truth at this point. You know, I stayed in for another 3 years or so. And then after 10 years, I took a vacation and I rented a small sailboat in the Virgin Islands. And one night I was anchored off St. John, Virgin Islands. And I rowed the dinghy ashore, and I climbed up on this hill to an old sugar plantation. And I sat there watching the sunset over the Caribbean, and I'm surrounded by bougainvillea, these beautiful flowers and a fragrance. It was, and seeing the sunset, and it was just beautiful. You know, I thought, God, I'm so lucky. How could I leave this job? And then it occurred to me that sugar plantation was built on the bones of thousands of slaves. And then I had to admit the whole continent, this whole hemisphere, is built on the bones of millions of slaves. I suppose most of the world is, when you come right down to it. Not just African slaves, but, you know, indigenous slaves and people from other countries that were brought here, Chinese people and so on. And so then I had to admit that I too was a slaver. A different kind of slavery. I was enslaving people with debt and lies. And at that point, I made the decision I wouldn't do it anymore. I would quit. And I did. I went back to my boss after that vacation, and I quit.
Was that a religious faith or some kind of personal conviction or realization from the outer world? Like, what actually struck you to write the book and do the right thing?
Well, yeah, I think it was more practical than anything else. I had a young daughter, and by the time I started writing the book, she was getting older. And eventually, you know, when I finally did publish the book, I also had a grandson, and I realized that the only way my grandson is going to inherit a livable world is if everybody on the planet has a livable world, not just him, not just Americans. And that the only way to make that happen was to transform the death economy to a life economy. So that's been my goal ever since. That's my mission, is to transform this degenerative system into a regenerative system and create what we call an ecological civilization, a global one, where it's all about balance. It's all about living in harmony with nature.
How do you see this world right now?
Yeah, there's been a movement toward the life economy, conscious capitalism, benefit corporations in the United States, at least. I don't know whether you have them in Korea or not. B corporations. This whole idea of getting off fossil fuels, People are understanding. So 10 years ago, I was speaking at a university at an MBA program. I might have a hard time convincing the students that there was a problem, that there was climate change. But that doesn't happen anymore. There may still be a few naysayers, but in general, every college student that I speak to, and I just was speaking by Zoom to several colleges in the last couple of weeks, and you don't need to convince them that there's climate change, that there's a problem. They know it. All over the world, people know it. Everywhere I go, I travel a lot. I just came back from Latin America. I was there for almost 2 months, and I'm headed to Europe this summer. These are all speaking engagements. I'm talking to you now in Korea. I recently talked to someone in Moscow, and it goes on and on. And everywhere, I find that people are waking up. There is a consciousness revolution, and so we're moving in that direction, and that's the first step. The perception. So perceptions drive reality. And we are now reevaluating our perception of what it means to be successful. And as far as working with leaders and investors, people who want to be successful, even if you take a narcissist or a sociopath, and there's a few of those running some of our biggest corporations, we know that. There's a bunch of them in politics and in the US government, we know that. But they are not driven by profit. They are driven by success. And when we define success as profit or more money, that's what drives them, gaining bigger profits, more money. If now, as we are beginning to define success as creating a better world for our future generations, if that becomes the ruler, the landmark of success, if we begin to put people who are making a better world on the covers of Fortune magazine and other business magazines and on TV and more and more on podcasts, and they become the success stories, then the sociopaths and the narcissists will be the first ones to really jump on the bandwagon and say, I want to be successful. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to become the leader in the green movement. And I think that's an important aspect to look at in all of this. It is a change of perception, and it's a way we define what it means to be successful human beings, being human on this planet. What does it mean?
So you wouldn't recommend people, if they get a job offer from Economic Hitman Corporation, you wouldn't recommend people to get the job? No, right?
Well, chances are they won't know that's what they're being brought into, because I didn't know it at the time. You got to open your eyes. Whatever job offer you get, always look for the story behind the story. Find out what's really going on. What are we really doing? Are these loans, in my case, really helping these other countries? Or are they just putting them so deep into debt that they become part of an American empire? That was a question I had to ask myself. So whatever job offer you get, look at what they're really asking you to do. If you're going to do it for a year or two, you might want to do it for a year or two to learn the inside story, so then you can go out and change the world.
What kind of daily routine would you recommend to people to be more conscious about making life economy?
So first of all, I'd say get up every morning and ask yourself 5 questions. And those 5 questions are outlined in the book with the detail, but they are, what do I want to do for the rest of my life? What will bring me the greatest satisfaction? How do I do it in a way that transforms the death to a life economy? The third question is, what's stopping me? And as a writer, I might say, well, I know to be a good writer, I got to write every day. And I don't have time. I don't have time to write every day. My carpenter friend might say, I want to use sustainable materials, but my clients don't want to pay the extra price. And so the fourth question is, well, when I confront that blockage that's stopping me, what kind of an information can I get that'll help me change? And I would say, I get the information that I could turn off the television for an hour every night, or maybe 2 hours, and write for 7 or 15 hours, 14 hours more a week. That's a lot of time to write. And my carpenter friend says, well, I'll tell my clients that the extra price is not a cost, it's an investment. And then the fifth question is, what actions do I take every day? And so you get up every morning, you kind of ask yourself this, and then the action is you write, or you build a cabinet, and every day that changes a little bit. So I may say, well, yeah, I'm going to write about these things, but the next day I got to say, well, what's the title? Am I going to write a book? Am I going to write a blog? You go into the detail every day. So I suggest to people, Spend 5 minutes when you first wake up every morning and ask yourselves these questions, and then take the actions that are necessary to make that happen. It may be as simple as sending out a text or an email. It may be that simple, or it may be as complex as running for president of Korea. We can all do something in this regard.